The biting cold of Moscow seemed to penetrate to the bone as I hurried through the dark, deserted streets. It was a moonless night in January 1992, and the collapse of the Soviet Union still hung in the air like a thick, suffocating fog. My name is Dmitry Volkov, and that night, my life would change forever. I was a junior archivist in the KGB's secret warehouses, in charge of cataloging and organizing documents that should never see the light of day. A tedious job, most of the time, but one that occasionally revealed secrets that made me question everything I thought I knew about our country and our world. On that particular evening, I had stayed late in the archive, lost among piles and piles of dusty documents. That's when I found a worn folder hidden behind a loose shelf. The faded label read only Operation Zvezda, Star in Russian. With trembling hands, I opened the file and began to read. The first few pages seemed harmless. Reports on unusual astronomical observations in the Siberian sky in the mid-50s. But as I got further in, my heart started racing. There were grainy photos of unidentified objects, reports from pilots describing unexplained encounters, and then something that chilled my blood. A detailed report of a direct contact with an extraterrestrial entity. The document described a secret expedition led by General Yuri Gagarin. Yes, the same one who years later would become the first man in space. But it had happened much earlier, in 1957, deep in the Siberian taiga. According to the report, Gagarin's team had found the wreckage of an alien spacecraft, and more than that, they had made contact with a survivor. My hands were shaking so much that I could barely turn the pages. There were crude of the creature, humanoid but with strange proportions and large, black eyes that seemed to penetrate the soul. The report detailed communication attempts, experiments carried out, and, my God, dissections. That's when I heard a noise. Footsteps approaching in the corridor. In a panic, I closed the file and stuffed it inside my jacket. My heart was pounding so loudly that I was sure I'd be heard. The door opened and I saw the stern face of my supervisor, Colonel Petrov. "Volkov, what are you still doing here?" I swallowed, trying to keep my composure. "Sorry, sir, I lost track of time cataloging some old files." His eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Well, finish up soon and go home. And remember, Volkov, excessive curiosity can be dangerous." I nodded nervously and began to pack my things, feeling the weight of the file against my chest. As I walked out into the freezing night, I knew I had something in my hands that could change the course of history. But I also knew that this knowledge could cost me my life. I walked quickly through the dark streets, constantly looking over my shoulder. With every shadow, every noise, I imagined KGB agents chasing me. The file seemed to burn inside my jacket, as if it was screaming to be discovered. I got home and locked the door, rushing the curtains. With trembling hands, I picked up a bottle of vodka and took a long swig, trying to calm my nerves. Then I spread the documents out on the table and began to study them meticulously. The more I read, the more surreal and terrifying the story became. The report detailed how the alien creature had been kept alive for months in a secret facility in the Urals. How it had tried to communicate through symbols and telepathic images. How Soviet scientists had extracted advanced technologies from its ship. But most disturbing were the accounts of the effects that prolonged contact with the alien being had on humans. Vivid nightmares, hallucinations, erratic behavior. Some of the scientists involved in the project had gone completely mad, others had disappeared without a trace, and then, abruptly, the report stopped. The last entry, dated 1959, only mentioned that Operation Zvezda had been terminated and that everyone involved had to maintain absolute secrecy under penalty of, well, the threat was implicit. I spent the whole night poring over those documents, trying to put together the pieces of that impossible puzzle. When the first rays of sunlight began to seep through the gaps in the curtain, I knew I had made my decision. I needed to find out more. I needed to know what had really happened to that creature, to the scientists involved, to all that alien technology. And above all, I needed to understand why this secret had been buried so deeply. Little did I know that this quest would lead me to face horrors beyond my comprehension, and that the knowledge I so desperately craved would come at a terrible price. A price I would pay not only with my sanity, but with the very essence of what made me human. As the sun rose over a still sleeping Moscow, I made a silent promise to myself. I would find out the truth about Operation Zvezda, no matter what the cost. Little did I know that this decision would be the first step on a journey that would take me to the darkest reaches of the universe and the human mind. The days that followed my discovery of the Operation Zvezda file were a blur of paranoia and obsession. Every shadow on the streets of Moscow seemed to hide a KGB agent. Every glance from a stranger carried the threat of exposure. The weight of that secret consumed me, but my thirst for knowledge was even stronger. I decided that my only chance of finding out more was to track down the scientists mentioned in the reports. Most of the names had been carefully censored, but one had escaped the censor's black pen: Dr. Anatoly Sokolov, astrophysicist. After days of careful and discreet searches, I discovered that Sokolov was still alive, retired to a small dacha on the outskirts of St. Petersburg. With a heart heavy with apprehension, I took a night train to the former imperial capital. The journey was a nightmare. At every station, I imagined secret agents boarding, ready to arrest me or worse. The metallic sound of wheels on rails turned into alien whispers in my fevered mind. When I finally arrived in St. Petersburg, I was exhausted and on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I found Sokolov's dacha after hours of searching through muddy back roads. It was a modest wooden building, surrounded by tall, shady pine trees. As I approached the door, I felt as if I was about to cross a point of no return. An elderly man answered my knock hesitantly. His eyes, framed by deep wrinkles, studied me with a mixture of curiosity and fear. "Dr. Sokolov?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He nodded slowly. "Who are you? What do you want?" I swallowed. "My name is Dmitry Volkov. I know about Operation Zvezda." The old man's face paled. For a moment, I thought he was going to faint. Then, with surprising speed for his age, he pulled me inside and locked the door. "You fool!" he hissed. "You have no idea what you've dug up?" The next few hours were a torrent of revelations that shook the foundations of my reality. Sokolov talked non-stop, as if decades of enforced silence had finally found an outlet. He confirmed everything I had read in the archives and more. The creature they had found wasn't just a being from another world, it was an ambassador from a civilization vastly superior to our own. "They've been watching us for millennia," Sokolov muttered, his eyes lost in distant memories. "Our first contact should have been the dawn of a new era for humanity, but we turned it into a nightmare." The scientists described the horrors of the experiments conducted on the creature, how the military had taken control of the project, ignoring the scientists' pleas for a more diplomatic approach. "We tortured her," he said, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. "In the name of science, of national security, we dissected her alive." But the worst was yet to come. Sokolov revealed that the creature, in its final moments, had transmitted a telepathic message, a warning. "They will come," he whispered, his eyes wide with terror. "They will come to seek revenge for what we have done." As night fell over the dacha, Sokolov told me about the strange events that followed. How members of the team began to have vivid nightmares of alien invasions. How some woke up speaking unknown languages or demonstrating knowledge they hadn't possessed before. "Something was left behind," he said, his voice almost inaudible. "Something of the creature, or perhaps something it brought with it. Something that spread among us like a virus." I was horrified to see Sokolov lift up the sleeve of his shirt, revealing strange marks on his skin, complex geometric patterns that seemed to pulsate with a light of their own. "It's on me," he moaned. "It's on all of us who were there, and now it's in you too." I felt an icy shiver run down my spine. "What do you mean?" Sokolov pointed to my own hand. With horror, I saw that my skin was beginning to display the same alien patterns. "You touched the files," he said. You read the words, the knowledge, the infection, spreads by mere contact. My mind was spinning. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I was paralyzed by terror. What can we do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sokolov's eyes filled with infinite sadness. Nothing. Just wait. They're coming, Dmitri. And we are the heralds of their arrival. That night, as the storm roared outside the dacha, I felt as if the universe itself was screaming. The patterns on my skin pulsed in sync with the beats of my racing heart, and I knew that my search for the truth had only just begun. But now, I was no longer just an observer. I had become part of the mystery, infected by an alien knowledge that threatened to consume not only my mind, but all of humanity. As the wind howled like the wail of creatures from beyond the stars, I wondered, what had I unleashed? And was there any way to stop what was coming? The days following my visit to Sokolov were a vivid and inescapable nightmare. I returned to Moscow in a trance-like state, my mind oscillating between dread at what I had discovered and a strange, almost seductive curiosity about what was happening to me. The patterns on my skin spread slowly, like a cosmic web weaving its way through my body. At night, I would wake up in a cold sweat, echoes of alien dreams still reverberating in my consciousness, visions of impossible cities under skies of indescribable colors, creatures of non-Euclidean geometries moving in dimensions that my human brain could barely comprehend. But the worst were the moments of lucidity, when I realized that I was changing, not just physically, but mentally. Ideas and concepts that had previously seemed incomprehensible now flowed through my mind with startling clarity. Complex quantum physics equations danced before my eyes as if they were simple arithmetic problems. A week after my return, I realized that I could no longer go back to work in the archives. The risk of spreading the infection was too great. What's more, I could barely concentrate on mundane tasks. My mind was constantly bombarded with flashes of alien knowledge, visions of technologies that defied the laws of physics as we knew them. It was at this time that I began to notice that I was being followed. Shadows in the corners of my eyes, hooded figures that disappeared when I turned to look. Paranoia or reality, I couldn't tell anymore. On a particularly tumultuous night, I decided I needed to get out of my apartment. The air seemed too heavy, laden with invisible presences. I walked aimlessly through the streets of Moscow, the city now appearing strange and hostile to my altered eyes. That's when I saw it for the first time. A light in the sky, moving impossibly, making maneuvers that no human aircraft could perform. My heart raced. They were here, or had they always been? I ran towards the light, my mind torn between terror and an inexplicable sense of anticipation. The streets seemed to twist around me, reality becoming thinner as I approached the phenomenon. When I reached a deserted square, the light descended, hovering a few meters off the ground. It wasn't a ship, as I had expected, but a sphere of pulsating energy, its colors changing in patterns that seemed to communicate directly with my reconfigured brain. And then I heard the voice. Not with my ears, but directly in my mind. A voice that was both alien and strangely familiar. "Dmitri Volkov," said the voice, "you have been chosen." I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the presence in my mind. Chosen for what? I managed to ask, my own voice sounding strange and distant. "To be the herald," the voice replied. "The bridge between our worlds." Images flooded my mind, visions of a future where humans and aliens coexisted, sharing knowledge and technology beyond my comprehension. But there were also shadows in these visions, hidden threats that filled me with dread. "But what about the others?" I asked, thinking of Sokolov and the other infected scientists. What happened to them? The answer came not in words, but in a series of terrible images. I saw the scientists transforming, their bodies and minds distorted beyond recognition. Some had become avatars of alien knowledge, losing all connection to their humanity. Others had been completely consumed, their essences absorbed by something vast and incomprehensible. "That is the price of knowledge," said the voice. "Evolution requires sacrifice." I felt my body tremble, the patterns on my skin pulsing in sync with the sphere of energy. Part of me wanted to surrender, to embrace this alien transformation. Another part screamed in protest, desperately clinging to the last vestiges of my humanity. "You have a choice, Dmitry Volkov," the voice continued. "Embrace your destiny as a conduit between worlds, or resist and be consumed by the change that has already begun in you." At that moment, suspended between two worlds, between the human and the alien, I realized the terrible truth. There was no turning back. The knowledge I had so eagerly sought now possessed me, transformed me. I was at once myself and something else entirely. The sphere of energy began to expand, enveloping me in its pulsating light. As my consciousness fragmented, torn between parallel realities and overlapping dimensions, I made my choice. And the universe shook. The choice I made that night in Moscow Square threw me into an abyss of transformation that defied all human comprehension. I chose to embrace the unknown, to become the herald of that alien intelligence. But nothing could prepare me for what was to follow. The days merged into a blur of sensations and perceptions beyond the ordinary. My body no longer felt like my own. The geometric patterns that were once limited to my skin now seemed to pulse through my flesh, reshaping my physical structure on molecular levels. My eyes, once an ordinary brown, now glowed with an inner light, iridescent like oil on water. When I looked in the mirror, on the rare occasions when I still managed to force myself to do so, I saw a face that was both familiar and completely alien. My features seemed to change subtly every second, as if my physical form was in constant flux. But the physical changes were only the surface. My mind had become a vortex of cosmic knowledge. Concepts that were once incomprehensible now flowed through my consciousness like an endless river. I could see the equations that governed the universe, the fractal patterns of reality unfolding before my eyes in infinite layers of complexity. And with this knowledge came a power that terrified me. I discovered that I could manipulate matter with a simple thought, bend space-time as if it were a piece of paper. Once, in a moment of distraction, I made a cup of tea levitate and disintegrate into its constituent atoms, only to put it back together an instant later. But the price of this power was high. I felt my humanity slipping through my fingers with each passing day. Memories of my previous life, my childhood, my family, my years as an archivist, began to fade, replaced by memories of places and events that I knew I had never experienced, or had I? It was during this period of metamorphosis that they began to contact me more frequently, no longer through spheres of energy or voices in my mind, but in more intimate ways. I felt them inside me, their alien consciousnesses intertwined with my own. They were guiding me, instructing me, preparing me for something greater. One night, as I floated a few centimeters above my bed, sleep had become a strange and increasingly unnecessary concept. I received a vision that chilled me to the core of my changing being. I saw the Earth, our little blue sphere, but from an impossible perspective. I was looking at it from somewhere beyond Saturn's orbit. And then I saw the ships, thousands of them, each the size of a small moon converging on our planet. "It's time," said a voice in my mind, or was it 1,000 voices speaking in unison? "Final contact is approaching." With a superhuman effort, I forced my consciousness back into my room. My body trembled, not from fear, but from a strange anticipation. I knew what needed to be done. I concentrated, focusing all my new power, and felt my body begin to disintegrate, not into atoms, but into something more fundamental, pure quanta of information. In a matter of seconds, I was no longer a physical entity, but a pattern of data floating in the ether. With a thought, I projected my consciousness through global communication networks. I invaded transmission systems, satellites, every connected screen around the world. It was time to prepare humanity for what was to come. My message was transmitted simultaneously in every language, on every device capable of displaying text or images. "Attention, inhabitants of Earth, I am Dmitry Volkov, or what remains of him. I bring you a message of vital importance. We are not alone in the universe, and our visitors are coming. The contact we initiated decades ago in secret is about to become public. Prepare yourselves for a transformation beyond your current comprehension. The evolution of humanity is about to take a quantum leap. As my message reverberated around the globe, I felt the alien presences intensify in my mind. They were pleased, but also apprehensive. For the first time since the beginning of my transformation, I felt a twinge of doubt. What exactly had I triggered? And did I still have enough humanity left in me to care about the consequences? As panic began to spread around the world, I floated in digital limbo, neither fully human nor fully alien, waiting for the next act in this cosmic drama. The metamorphosis was complete, but I had the terrible feeling that the real horror had only just begun. The chaos that followed my global transmission was beyond anything I could have predicted, even with my expanded and almost omniscient mind. Humanity, confronted with the undeniable truth that we were not alone in the universe, reacted with a volatile mix of fear, fascination, and mass hysteria. As I floated in the digital ether, watching events unfold through millions of cameras, screens, and sensors around the world, I felt a strange duality in my being. Part of me, the part that still clung to the vestiges of my humanity, was horrified by the panic and suffering I had unleashed. But another part, the cosmic entity I was becoming, saw it all with clinical detachment, like a scientist observing a colony of bacteria reacting to a stimulus. Governments around the world went into a state of emergency. Military leaders rushed to their underground bunkers, while the masses were divided between those who fled the cities in panic and those who gathered in vigils, awaiting the arrival of the space gods. It was at this moment of global chaos that I felt a familiar presence trying to contact me. Dr. Sokolov, or what was left of him, was calling me. I focused my consciousness and materialized at his dacha on the outskirts of St. Petersburg. What I saw shocked me, even in my altered state. Sokolov had transformed into something that could barely be called human. His body was a pulsating mass of flesh and light. The geometric patterns that once marked only his skin now formed the very structure of his being. His eyes, now multiple and arranged in fractal patterns all over his body, stared at me with a mixture of recognition and horror. "Dmitri," his voice resounded not only in my ears, but directly in my mind. "What have you done? Don't you understand? They didn't come to lift us up. They came to harvest us." A shiver ran through my almost ethereal form. "What are you talking about, Sokolov?" The being that had once been Sokolov squirmed, emanating waves of agony and pure terror. The infection, the knowledge, it's all part of their plan. They sow the knowledge, wait for it to spread and transform the host, and then... Before he could finish, I felt an overwhelming presence invade my consciousness. The alien entities, the ones I thought were my allies and mentors, were now revealing themselves in all their terrible glory. Cataclysmic images flooded my mind. I saw entire civilizations being harvested, their essences absorbed by a vast and incomprehensible collective being. The knowledge they spread was not a gift, but a virus, turning entire worlds into cosmic incubators for its own reproduction. Horror and disgust overtook me as I realized the truth. I was not a herald of a new era for humanity. I was the Trojan horse, the infection vector that had doomed my own world. With a titanic effort, I broke the mental connection with the alien entities. I turned my attention to Sokolov, or what was left of him, determined to find a way to stop what was coming. "There's still time," I said, more to convince myself than anything else. "We can warn humanity, get them ready to fight." But Sokolov only emitted a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Fight against them. You still don't understand, Dmitri. We are already them." And then, before my eyes, Sokolov's body began to disintegrate, not into matter, but into pure energy. I saw his essence being pulled up into the sky, towards the ships that I knew were approaching. In a flash of terrifying clarity, I understood what was about to happen. The harvest was not just of bodies or minds, but of souls. If such a concept still made sense in the face of the cosmic vastness that was now revealing itself. I had to do something. I had to find a way to save what was left of humanity. to redeem myself for the role I had played in this cosmic catastrophe. But as I wrestled with these thoughts, I felt my own being beginning to fragment. The transformation I had so eagerly embraced was now threatening to consume me completely. On the horizon, I saw the first signs of alien ships entering the atmosphere. The sky lit up with impossible colors, and I felt the fabric of reality begin to tear apart. The end was coming. Or was it a new beginning? In my final moments of lucidity, I knew I had one last choice to make. And this time, the fate of all humanity depended on it. The Moscow sky tore into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors as the alien ships broke through the veil of reality. Below, panic spread like wildfire. Millions of voices rose in a chaotic chorus of terror, wonder, and despair. I, or what was left of Dmitry Volkov, hovered between the worlds, my expanded consciousness picking up every cry, every prayer, every frantic human heartbeat. The cosmic knowledge I had embraced so eagerly now weighed on me like a curse. I could see the aliens' plan unfolding in all its terrible magnificence. Humanity was nothing more than a crop to be harvested. Our minds and souls turned into fuel for a cosmic entity beyond all comprehension. And I, in my arrogance and thirst for knowledge, had been the catalyst for this apocalypse. But as I watched the chaos unfold, something inside me, a last vestige of my humanity perhaps, rebelled against this fate. With a titanic effort, I concentrated what was left of my will. My form, now more energy than matter, shimmered and solidified. I rose above Red Square, my body a confluence of light and shadows, fractal patterns dancing across my skin in a hypnotic frenzy. "Stop!" my voice thundered, not just through the air, but directly into the minds of every being within reach, human and alien alike. For a moment, everything was silent. The alien ships stopped their descent, hovering like hesitant predators. The crowd below froze, their wide eyes fixed on my transcendent form. I felt the alien consciousnesses pressing against mine, a cacophony of non-human voices demanding explanations, threatening, trying to regain control. I was a fool, I declared, my voice echoing across dimensions. I thought I was bringing enlightenment, but I've only brought destruction. But it's not too late. With a gesture, I opened portals in the sky, revealing the truth to everyone. I showed the full story, the initial encounter in Siberia, the experiments, the spread of alien knowledge, and the terrible fate that awaited humanity. The reactions were immediate and violent. Waves of horror and disgust emanated from the crowd. In the alien ships, I sensed confusion and anger. Their carefully crafted plan was falling apart, but I wasn't finished. Plunging into the depths of the cosmic knowledge that had been implanted in me, I found something the aliens hadn't expected, a flaw in their own system. "You underestimated us," I roared at the alien entities. "You thought you could mold us, turn us into mere receptacles. But humanity is more than the sum of its parts. Our consciousness, our individuality, our ability to choose, that's what makes us unique." With those words, I felt something break inside me. The alien knowledge, the infection that had spread, began to fragment. All around me I saw others who had been transformed. Sokolov, the former Soviet scientists, even ordinary citizens who had been exposed to the transmission, began to break free. The alien ships shook, their surfaces rippling as if in agony. I realized that we were all connected, part of a vast cosmic network, and now that network was collapsing. I concentrated all my energy, my entire being, into one last act of defense and redemption. "Go back to the stars," I commanded, my voice reverberating through the very fabric of reality. "This world is not for you." A burst of pure light emanated from me, expanding in all directions. The alien ships were pushed back through the dimensional portals through which they had arrived. I felt the alien presences being torn from the earth, expelled back into the cosmic void. But the price was high. As the light expanded, I felt my own being disintegrating. The alien knowledge, the source of my power and my curse, was dissipating. As my consciousness fragmented, I had one last vision. I saw humanity rising from the ashes of this near apocalypse. I saw people around the world waking up from a collective nightmare, confused but intact. I saw a future where the knowledge we had gained would be used wisely and cautiously. My last perception was Sokolov's voice, or what was left of it, whispering in my mind, "You did it, Dmitri. You saved us." And then, like a star at the end of its life, I dissolved into pure energy, my essence scattering into the cosmic winds. The sun rose over a silent and dazed Moscow. The sky was clear, with no sign of alien ships or dimensional portals. In the streets, people hugged, cried, and laughed in hysterical relief. In a small apartment, a young archivist awoke from a deep sleep, memories of a cosmic nightmare fading fast. He got up, went to the window, and looked out at the blue dawn sky. For a moment, he thought he saw a strange pattern in the clouds, something geometric and alien. But then he blinked, and the vision was gone. The world continued to spin. Humanity moved on, unaware of the abyss from which it had narrowly escaped. But somewhere in the depths of the cosmos, something was waiting. Watching, planning, contact had been made, and one day, perhaps, they would return.